This is going to be measurement review. So in your packet, we're going to go over lessons 12, 13, 14, 15, and the checkpoint. So starting on lesson 12 on page 253, remember that in class we practiced measuring things, the length, how long something is, using non-standard units of measure. So non-standard means, again, that they're not real measurement tools like a yardstick or a ruler. They're just using everyday objects to measure things. So you can see in this example, they used a paperclip to measure an object. In this example, they're using a pencil to measure an object. So your paper asks you to find these objects and then measure them in either how many paper clips long they are or how many pencils they are. Remember, when it says about, that means it's an estimate. That means it's maybe not exactly 5, but close to 5. Okay? So if you do not have these objects in your house, that's okay. Just find any object that you have, a book, a toy, your dresser, your bed, a pillow, your backpack, and measure it and see how many pencils long it is. So the best way to do that is to get 2 pencils, okay? And they should probably be the same length, okay? Mine are not the same length. So let me use these pencils because that would be a little more, make more sense. So get 2 pencils or 2 color crayons or 2 markers, whatever you have, and just pick something to measure how long it is. So if I'm going to measure my packet, I remember put the edge of the marker or whatever tool I'm measuring with to the edge of the paper, and then I put them where they need to be touching. Remember, there cannot be space. We talked about that in class. They have to be touching, and I can see this packet is 1 whole marker and a little more, almost 2, but not quite 2. So I would put that it is about 2 because it's almost 2. It's closer to 2 than 1. Okay? And then you can just find something else to measure. You can measure a toy, a book, whatever you have, a bookshelf. If you don't have anything to measure and don't have any tools, you can just skip it. Okay? And the same thing on the back. Just find out anything, measure anything in your house. Your lunchbox, a box of crayons. And if you don't have a paper clip or a block, again, just pick 2 color crayons and measure in color crayons or measure in pencils, however you want. Okay, so let's look at number 9. Fred uses blocks to measure this stick. Sue measures the stick and gets the same measurement. Circle the unit that Sue uses. Okay, so if they get the same measurement, then they need to measure in the same non-standard unit. So Fred used a block to measure. For her to get the same, she would also need to use a block. If she uses a paper clip is longer than a block, she's not going to get the same measurement as Fred. So if he used a block and she got the same, she also would use a block. Okay, on lesson 13, this time they already put the non-standard units of measure for you, and you just need to say how long it is. So remember, when you're measuring a pencil, the end of the pencil and the end of your measurement tool, in this case a paper clip, have to be lined up. Okay, then you're going to count how many paper clips from the end of the pencil to the other end. So if we count them, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4. The end of the pencil is there, so I see 4 paper clips. So they wrote 4. Okay? So you're going to look at how long is the string? How many paper clips? Write the number. How long is the straw? Okay. And on the back of this page, it's the same. You're going to just look at the measurement and count how many paper clips and write it. Okay? Look at number 6. Wendy measures her pencil. She says it is about 2 paper clips long. Is she correct? Okay, so let's look. Is she right? I see 1 paper clip, 2 paper clips, 3 paper clips. If I look to where the edge of that pencil goes, is it closer to 2 paper clips or closer to 3 paper clips? There's just a little bit of paper clip left over here. It's closer to 3 than it's 2. So when we answer the question, is she correct? I would say no, and then tell why. Because the pencil is closer to 3 paper clips. Okay, so you go ahead and finish that answer. Okay, lesson 14, you're going to compare lengths of objects. So we did this also in class, if you remember. We had 3 different objects and we sorted them or compared them by either going from shortest to longest, or sometimes we put them in order from longest to shortest. So you have to read your directions carefully so you know. So if it says first write 1, 2, and 3 in order of strings from shortest to longest. So that means shortest is going to be 1, longest will be 3. Okay, so we can see this rope is shorter than this one and this one, so that gets the number 1. This rope is longer, it's longer than all the others, so it gets number 3. This one is in the middle of those 2, so it gets 2. So this is the shortest, this one's a little bit longer, and this one is the longest. Okay, and then it says to measure with blocks each string. So if you have a little block or a little paper clip that you can use, then go ahead and do that. If you don't, you can skip that part. Or you could use, if you want, you could use like the lid of a marker. Oh, it's 1 lid, okay? It's up to you. Or you can just skip it. So down here, you're gonna do the same thing. Write 1, 2, or 3 to order the strings from shortest to longest. So the shortest gets number 1. So if we look at these 3 strings, we can tell this one here in the middle is the shortest, so it gets number 1. This one is a little bit longer, and this one is the longest. So this one gets number 2, and this one gets number 3. If you have something to measure these, go ahead and do that. Okay, and then on the back, you're going to do the same thing. So measuring from shortest to longest. So put 1, 2, 3. 1 for the shortest, 3 for the longest, and the same on number 3. Let's look at number 4. Kate has these ribbons. Kate gives Hannah the longest one. Measure with blocks and write the length of Hannah's ribbon. So if I don't have any blocks, I'm just going to use the lid to my marker, and it says she gets the longest one. So I can see this one here in the middle is the longest one. And how many blocks long is it? So I'm going to take 2 lids, and I'm just going to measure, put it to the end. 1, 2, 3, and it's just a little, the ribbon goes to right there. So I can see it's almost 4. So I'm just going to put about 4. That's my estimate. Okay? You can measure it with something else if you have something else, or you can just write 4 since we measured it together. Okay, and remember that we also talked about time is a measurement. It measures how hours, minutes, and seconds. So remember that there are 2 hands on a clock. There's a short hand, which is the hour hand, and the long hand, which is the minute hand. Remember, if the long minute hand is pointing to the 12, if it's straight up, we always write O, O for o'clock. If the long minute hand is pointing to the 6, remember that we say 30 minutes because we count by 5s. Let's do that. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So if it's pointing to the long minute hand is pointing all the way down to the 6, we always write 30. Okay, for the hour hand, if it's pointing right at the number, we know what number it is. If it's between 2 numbers, we always say the number before. It has to be touching exactly on the number before you can say it. So if I see this 4 right here, if I use my pencil and line it up, the shorthand is not touching the 5 yet, so I still have to say 4. 4:30. because it moved halfway between 4 and 5, 4:30. Okay? We did those in class before we left for our long break here. So you're going to look at the clock and write the time. Remember to write the hour first, dot, dot, and then the minutes. So if it's all the way, the long hand's on the 12, you're going to write o'clock. If the long hand is on the 6, you're going to write 30. So first look at the shorthand. I see this shorthand. If I make it a little bit longer so I can tell, I can see it's between the 9 and the 10. If it's not touching the 10, I have to write 9. So 9, then I write dot, dot. Now I look at my long minute hand, it's at the 6. If the long minute hand's at the 6, I write 30. So this time is 9:30. Okay? This one, I see the shorthand is right at the 2, so I write 2, dot, dot. I look at my long minute hand, it's up at the 12. If it's at the 12, I write 00 for o'clock, 2 o'clock. Okay, so you write the time on this one. Look at your shorthand first. If you make it look so you can see how far it is, it's between the 3 and the 4. So if it's not touching the 4, we have to write 3. And then look at the long minute hand. If it's pointing to the 6, we know how many minutes we write. So I should see 3:30 there. Okay, you're going to go ahead and write the time for all of these clocks. They're going to either be o'clock or 30. If you need to, look on the previous page to help you remember. Okay, let's look at number 10. Draw and write to show the time. Liam has soccer practice at 10:30 o'clock. Okay, so remember we talked about what half past means. That means the minute hand on the clock went from the top and it went halfway around the clock. And if halfway around the clock is pointing to the 6. So that means that if it's 10, 10:30, that means the shorthand has to be pointing to the 10, between the 10 and the 11 actually. And then the long hand has to be at 10:30. So that means it has to go halfway around. So that means that it would go to the 6. So what time is that? That is 10:30 or 10:30. Okay. All right. On the checkpoint, this is just to review and make sure you remember. If you have something to measure and some objects, you can, or you can just skip this. It's up to you. This one you can do. How long is the yarn? Use the star ruler to measure. So it's asking you how many stars it is. So if you draw the line to the end of that, then count the stars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's 7 stars long. Okay, and you can measure that one. And then this is a review again. Right, measure from shortest to longest. So put number 1 for the shortest, number 3 for the longest. If you have something to measure them with, go ahead. If you don't, that's okay, you can skip it. Okay, shortest to longest for this one. Number 1 gets shortest, number 3 gets longest. And then down here, look at the time and choose the correct time. There is only one correct answer, only one. So make sure you look at that short hour hand first, and then look at that long minute hand and find the correct time. Okay, have a great day. Have fun with math.